This is the Samsung Galaxy A25 and is the first Samsung budget phone to cram basically every spec you can find on the mid-range end. On this phone, you get a 1080p Super AMOLED panel with 120Hz refresh rate, an average performing Exynos 1280 chipset backed by up to 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage, a triple 50MP camera setup, as well as 4 years of major OS updates. Tell me if that isn't impressive for $250, but as good as these features are, there are still some caveats as expected, which I'll get to in a second. But before I continue, I need you to smash that subscribe button for more videos just like this one. This phone is a beast for value, which isn't made clear at the beginning because the box is tiny. Underneath the phone, you just get a USB-C cable, a bunch of startup guides, and a SIM ejector tool, as you should expect for actually buying a modern Samsung smartphone. And once it's whipped out of the box, you are staring at one of the prettiest plastic finishes of all time. It's glossy, which I don't like as it's very prone to fingerprint smudges, but if you are holding this phone in your hand, you would think it's actually a more durable material. The phone has a set of stereo speakers which sound okay for its price. The fingerprint scanner embedded into the power button still feels tactile and responsive, and the subtle sounds and haptics make it very enjoyable. And that enjoyment actually increases when you look at the front. I think this is the most fluid Samsung budget phone I've ever seen. The colors are spot on with high contrast and accuracy. It's very smooth at 120Hz and pretty bright at 1000 nits, which is just enough for outdoor usage. I can say that this brightness level reaches nowhere in comparison to newer flagships which can get 4000 plus nits of brightness, but it's starting to match up with the flagships of say 5 years ago. The problem with this display though is the presence of a U-shaped notch as well as the bezels. There are cheaper phones with a hole punch cutout on the display. Why is there a notch on a $250 plus phone in 2024? Also, the bezels bother me a lot. They are very thick and it almost makes the phone unappealing at first glance. But I guess that when you buy the phone, when you use it, the contrasty AMOLED panel could hide it often, especially when put against a dark background. The performance is just okay. The phone is powered by the Exynos 1280, which provides average performance, so you can run any title out there but at the medium settings. What makes this chip special is that it's one of the few budget chipsets out there with 5G support. So whilst doing activities here, expect extremely high speeds, but that depends on how 5G capable your remote location actually is. Also, you get up to 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage, of which the latter can be expanded by a memory card. All that power can also boost further the software experience. You don't get the usual lags whilst opening the Google Discover feed. The wallpaper change is into effect almost instantly and everything just seems to be very stable, which makes me to appreciate how much One UI has evolved in prioritizing the usual experience. But my biggest gripe with this software is the bloatware. For some reason, Samsung literally forces you to use their services, which is a no-no as we are used to Google services instead. There are so much recommendations, you kind of wonder whether your phone is actually yours because of how much stuff you are being told to do. And as the cherry on top, Samsung is promising 4 years of security update, which if achieved on this phone will be game changing. This phone supports 25W fast charging, which boosts its battery from empty to full in just under an hour and a half. And the battery life is good enough to last a full day of medium usage, and so you won't reach for your charger, which you have to buy separately as it isn't included in the box. So before I tell you whether you should buy this phone or not, let's talk about the most important aspect of any smartphone, the cameras. This phone has a 50MP main camera, an ultra-wide camera and a macro camera. The pictures are spot on with the intelligence controlling all areas in the frame. Even in low light, the output doesn't completely fall apart like I expected. The video is another story entirely. It's good enough in daylight with electronic image stabilization making it stable, although you see rough edges now and again. And plus, the ultra-wide camera and the macro camera are deep in quality, which is expected for a phone of this price. So should you buy this Samsung Galaxy A25? It sounds ridiculous that this phone supports 5G, has an AMOLED panel, etc., but doesn't have something as simple as a hole punch cutout or IP53 rating. The reason is that Samsung knows the limitations to give their budget phones, so it doesn't feel like an underpriced mid-ranger. If you want features like this with slimmer bezels, IP rating and more, you raise your budget higher and go for maybe the A54. But leaving that aside, this is still an awesome phone. If you enjoyed this video, kindly like and subscribe. I'm Hilary, this is Harry21.